The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you.
Hernandez's family moved to the United States from Puerto Rico in the 1940s in search of a better way of life. They settled down in the South Bronx, a ghetto, which is a section that is heavily populated by Latinos in New York, where Hernandez was born. Oscar Hernandez was the youngest of 11 siblings, received a primary and secondary education in the city's public schools system. Also a great pianist, an amazing pianist, since the age of 16, professional and multi-Grammy award-winning, now presenting Mr. Oscar Hernandez.
Whoa, 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 yeah.
Thank you. That's pretty cool.
All right. So you didn't know all about you, huh?
I kind of forget sometimes. People remind me, but it's good to hear it, and it brings me back to how it all started for me. So, and happy to be here now, 40-something years later, with a successful career. You know, for me being from the South Bronx, I feel, and you know, from inner city, I feel very privileged to be to have accomplished what I've accomplished now, and traveled all over the world with this gift that God gave me and put in front of me. I always say it's divine intervention. He put it in my path for a reason, and I'm making my mark little by little, you know, what I'm doing, and it's just an awesome blessing.
Well, you know what? Now let's go a little deeper, okay? Because we saw a little bit about where you came from. Now we want to turn that around and find out how did those humble beginnings get you scratching that itch that was called music? Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, it came from where I lived. The music that I, gravitated to, I was hearing from every other window or every other door in my neighborhood. And it was mainly, it was a Latino neighborhood. I grew up I was telling Rhonda
Dixon, yes.
I was telling Rhonda that I grew up in an era that was the cultural revolution of Latinos in the city of New York. And it might have been the Black Revolution as well during the 50s and 60s as well with Harlem, what was going on. So it was very parallel what was going on. Actually, you could make the same parallel between Spanish Harlem and Harlem, and they're parallel logistically and in terms of the map, but the parallels culturally and musically were the same. So for me, having grown up in that era and listening to that music everywhere I went. And somebody gave me a piano, and they gave it to me because we couldn't afford to buy one, that's for sure. I was very blessed to gravitate and start playing, with local boy bands at the time when I was 14 and 15. Mm-hmm. And it developed into starting to play professionally when I was 16 because I was already, pretty talented at, I guess it was meant for me.
Right.
And it forged my career that was going to happen, all these years later.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started out by playing one of your songs because a lot of people are saying, okay, let's go back to the roots of the rudimentary part of the music, right? Because during that time when you were coming up and you were starting to play and do your different vibes there, then you also had rock and roll jumping off. You had rock trying to get a foothold in. You had so many components around you trying to get a foothold. But the Latin jazz aspect of it is a mixture of a whole lot of sounds. And a lot of people don't realize how deep it goes into bringing the forerunners of a lot of different music that we know now through the Latin jazz scene.
No doubt. And as a young musician, we were exposed. I was brought up in a neighborhood it was almost exclusively Latino. So the music you heard, obviously we were listening to pop radio.
Right,
and the music, R&B and rock and roll was a big part of what we were listening to. We were listening to, the whole Motown era, Four Tops, The Temptations, Martha and Vandella, and the Vandellas, Diana Ross, and on, all the people that were part of the fabric of what that music was. But my path took me mostly down the Latino path and the jazz path as well, because we were, as young musicians, we were looking to be adventurous and looking to be progressive, and also had our ear to the ground to what, bebop was, who Charlie Parker was, who Bud Powell was, who Earl Garner was, all the greats, Art Tatum later on, the people who were the fabric of what jazz was at that time, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea. I could name John Coltrane, so many of the important musicians that were part of jazz. So we had our ear to the ground to what that was, and we were bringing influence as well. And then we had people that were examples. For me, I always say that the education I got as a young musician, at 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, being surrounded by incredible musicians who were all older than me, you couldn't get in the best university anywhere in the world. So that was an important part of the fabric of what made me the musician that, I would become later on.
Now, you had the Juilliards up there in different schools, but there were a lot of cats out there, like you said, that were playing it that weren't schooled. Now, how did that factor in?
Well, I was self-taught. I later on forced myself to go. I had graduated from high school, but I was already traveling, and I was already going to Europe at 19, 20, 21. So later on in my early 20s, I forced myself to go back to college just looking for something more. And I got a degree in music, and I could read because I was self-taught, but the music that I was learning from musicians who were amazing musicians around me, just looking at the scores. When I played with Ray Barretto, for instance, I did 6 records with Ray. The arrangements alone were an education, and I was receiving that firsthand. So that type of education, like I said, you couldn't pay for at the best university.
Right.
And it's a privilege.
Now, how did you get your first big break into this? A lot of people want to know how to get into the industry because even talent, just talent alone is not enough. Sometimes you've got to get that break.
Well, don't forget, Rhonda, we're talking about a different era.
Right.
In that era, 40-something years ago, there were literally 25, 30, 40 clubs in the city of New York.
Okay.
So you could play, and there were the top bands playing at these clubs. So this is what I was exposed to. And early on I started playing professionally when I was late 16, 17.
Right.
And my big break came when I was 18 playing with a gentleman who was the most popular salsa singer. They call him El Niño Bonito, which was pretty boy, means pretty boy. So he was popular with all the girls, and we were working 5, 6, 7 days a week. His name was Ismael Miranda. He was a popular singer back in those days in New York, and, like I said, the cultural revolution of Latinos was happening, so all these social events, all these clubs were a big part of what was happening, and we were playing at all of them. So for me to get that, and he had a great band with great musicians who were all older than me at the time. So for me to get that experience, and I was already earning a good living, enough to get my own place, I had buy my own car, and that set the path for me as to where I was going to go. But that was a great beginning.
Right.
Did you have a mentor?
I had a bunch of mentors. There were people who were old that I used to around the scene that I used to look up to, whether they were pianists, in my case, because I'm a pianist, or arrangers, because I got to be an arranger as well. And there were a couple of musicians. I got to work with a gentleman in New York who was, to this day, is the greatest arranger for me. His name was Jose Febles. He passed away some years ago, but he was one of the most amazingly talented musicians I had ever met in my life. You could tell that God said, you're going to be a musician. And he put this amazing talent in this guy because he could just hear everything. So for me to be exposed to somebody like that and just see how he did it, I would look at his scores, and they were impeccable, and they sounded amazing. You just hear the music, you go like, whoa, what is that? So you can't help but just absorb what that is. So, but there were a few other people like that were important, more as an example. Somebody example I can follow.
Now, I noticed that, unlike any other genre out there, if it was rock and roll, if it was the Motown era, you had your groups, and within the group was the fabric. The fabrics of what the songs were being like, the choreography, the look. If you're in rock and roll, they had certain looks that were bringing it in, and all these things were within lock. What I saw different in contrast of what the Latin jazz brought in is you could be in so many different clubs, and you can jump from club to club in a night's time and play in different sets. So it ended up to where you had different artists working with different cats, even going there and recording on different people's sets, which I'm sure brought everybody's chops to another level, because not only did you have your chops doing what you're doing, but you had to fade in and be able to work with somebody else and then get in and groove with them. So that must have, that's an interesting time. A lot of people don't understand the experience that goes into that, being able to come with a potpourri of musicians, man, and still keep yourself and not get lost in somebody else's groove.
Well, yeah, that's an important part of what the process was in those days. And also, you could also mention that the fact that you're playing, you mentioned Latin jazz, the fact that jazz brought a different mindset to it somehow. It brought a different audience, because now you have people who were not necessarily Latinos interested. Mm-hmm. You had Latinos who were interested because they were also saying, oh, that's pretty cool, that's hip, I don't know what that is. But you had the people who were jazz buffs, and they weren't necessarily Latinos. They were blacks, right. They were whites, and there were other people of other ethnic groups who gravitated towards the music. I mean, I got to play with Dizzy Gillespie as a young musician on a couple of gigs, and he was at the forefront of making, Afro-Cuban Latin jazz really popular, because he fell in love with the genre. Right. He heard the drum, and he hooked up with Chano Pozo, who was one of the main exponents of the Latin percussion, and he said, I don't know what this is, but it's smoking. I want some of that. Right. And he was an important cog in making popular Latin jazz. But yeah, the versatility which you talk about is key. I think as a young musician, you have to try to be flexible and move in different directions and see what everybody who you may be in contact with is looking for, and how you can fit in and how you can adapt and also contribute. So that was an important part of the process as well.
It was a growth process because, like I said, you were tuning and honing your skills and enhancing your skills from, like I said, how many people can walk around saying on their resume, Dizzy Gillespie, and some of the other cats that you played with down there, with the different foresights, who would have known how that shaped you today?
Yeah, well, that's an important part. All the people that I got to play with and record, I mean, I mentioned Dizzy Gillespie, but I played with Mongo Santa Maria, with Ray Barreto early on. I played with Tito Puente, Celia Cruz. I always tell the funny story that I'd never forget. When I was 21, they called me to play with Celia Cruz, who was like Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
So, and I'll never forget. So I go to the airport. I go to JFK. I had never met her before. I never saw her before. And I go to JFK, and I'm looking at her, and I see her like from a distance. And I was like, and I was 21. She must have been about 51. And I went, oh man, Celia looks old. I said in my mind, so check this out. So I go and I introduce myself, and she was like, she was the most amazingly gracious, beautiful human being you could meet. She tells me in Spanish, mijito, mucho gusto, nice to meet you, blah, 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 blah. Welcome, thank you for being here, because we were going to Toronto to accompany her, me and a bass player from New York, because the guys in Toronto couldn't cut it. So that day we go rehearse, right? The next day, we're on the stage, they announce her, she comes out, bam! She comes out decked to the max, with her heels, with her wig, with her outfit. I went like, wow. I was like, she looks amazing. And then she proceeded to captivate the whole audience, and for me, it was an indelible impression that I'll never forget. Right. In terms of what professionalism, what showmanship is. And then, I was fortunate to play with her many times. And I wouldn't see her for 2 or 3 years, and it was like I was an old friend. Carlito, she would come, Carlito, ¿cómo está, mijito? How are you? Good to see you. What's her family? I mean, it's those experiences are, man, what can I tell you? That's what it's all about for me, and I'll forever take that with me. And I had, a few other experiences like that with people like that, so that were an influence in me and what I do.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned the ability to be able to go outside the States. Now, some people that experience the musical backlash, like Nina Simone, who decided, one of the best, who decided that she wasn't being as received as she should have been in the States. So she decided to go outside the States, and she was well received, and then she would come back and see the fame she had over there versus here. So I know there's a christening period, so to speak. In your journey, were you able to see some of that were you able to be a part of that, or how did that work for you coming as a young man out of the city and being able to travel with different influences overseas? And
talk about speaking again about an indelible experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was 22 years old, maybe. I don't remember the exact age I was. But here I am in Europe for the first time, right? Again, I'm from the South Bronx. I'm from the hood. I'm from, I grew up, in that environment.
Right.
So I'm in Europe for the first time, and we're on a sleeper bus. Sleeper bus is a bus with beds, because we're touring.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're coming into Paris at 6 o'clock in the morning. The bus is coming in. I'm waking up, and I'm looking out the window going like, I'm like, incredible.
Right.
So beautiful.
You know what? For me, I said, wow. Immediately, I said, there's a whole lot more to the world than where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And then I proceeded to be in Paris for 5 or 6 days and just absorb the culture, the architecture. The architecture alone is amazing.
Yes.
You're talking about history. There's an incredible history there that we don't have. We just don't have it. We can brag all we want about what we have, all the money we have. We don't have that history. And Paris is an example of that. And then you go see, the beautiful places, that Paris has to offer. Not to mention the beautiful, streets and all the things that has to offer. So you realize it makes you grow as a person and seek and want more and realize that there's more to the world than what we see, and it's awesome.
And it expands your writing too, because there's so much of the difference in writing, like you said, about the things here. You know what I'm saying?
And it all influences you. It all plays a part into what you're trying to create.
Right.
Because that all serves as inspiration. I don't, it's not necessarily direct inspiration, but it's an inspiration somehow, because it's something that touches you, your soul, and that helps you grow as a human being and helps you grow as an artist. I
want to talk a little bit about the business side, because I'm an entertainment lawyer, so I always get fascinated with that part of it. When did you have a manager?
That's funny. I don't have a manager. I tried having a manager. First of all, my band, Spanish Harlem Orchestra, has been together for 17 years. And we've traveled all over the world, and we've won 3 Grammys, and I'm really proud of the legacy that we've created in those 17 years. Keeping the music alive with respect to the tradition and the history of what the music is, on the level that we feel it merits to be on the pedestal we feel it merits to be on. So I don't have a business manager. It's just I tried, it didn't work, and I'm so used to being the manager myself. As a matter of fact, we were just in Europe last time, and the guy says, "You mean he plays piano?" I thought he was just a tour manager. And I don't relish saying that, but it just so happens I don't have one. I'd like to have one, and maybe in a perfect world with less than 13 people traveling, 13 hotel rooms, and 13 airfares, maybe I could afford one. Doesn't always. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Right. So it's just the nature of where I've chose to go, and I have it pretty much down. I make it simple, and I'm pretty clear at what I want to achieve, and I'm pretty clear. And if you look at our tech writer, it's really clear. They can say whatever they want. I say, just look at the tech writer here. It's all written there. It's all explained in black and white, as well as the contracts. And that's important to me, because there's no nebulous. What was the word? It's not nebulous.
No ambiguity.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is clear, and I take pride in making sure that we achieve what we need to achieve to perform comfortably and do what we need to do. But it's the business is tough, Rhonda.
I know.
For sure.
You have a recording contract?
At the moment, yeah. My record is on Origin Records, so it's a very they're a music label. They're a pro music label. So it's I own the product. They don't own it. Which is what
so
I
you
wanted.
own your masters.
I own my masters. So that was important to me. And they take us percentage. They don't do a lot. But within what the business is these days, it works for me.
Right.
And there are no more major labels, not...
so you just have basically a licensing and distribution deal, basically.
Yeah, they do radio promotion, and they do a little bit of what they do in terms of distribution. But yeah, it is what it is, and it works on the level that I needed. Last record deal that I had was with Concord Records, and the money they were offering me moving forward was too little for me to say yes to give up my product. I said, I'm not giving it to you, not for that amount. You know? So you have to make a choice as an artist, which is not easy sometimes, but it is what it is. But the main thing is that I'm working and doing what I need to do to keep the music alive and well.
That's funny because I'm always trying to educate my clients on the business so that they can participate. And I have some clients that do and some that don't. They say they just want to be purely artistic. I said, but this is your life. This is your living. And you need to understand the business side of the music business. It is a business, and it is the music. You know what I mean? And so you don't want to get taken advantage of. You want to get paid what you're worth. And it doesn't take an attorney. It takes somebody, though, that knows, like you do, your own business. You need to know the business. And,
Well, I should say I have a booking agent. So I don't have I'm not a manager, but I have a booking agent who takes care of booking part. So he'll take care and he'll negotiate what he needs to negotiate. It's not up to me. I don't want to negotiate anything. It's not what I do.
Right.
I mean, I guess not the sad part of what's the word. I guess the one maybe disappointing part of it is that I'm really good at what I do. So even now for this project, coincidentally, I had a friend of mine who kept telling me, you should apply for a grant. And I said, grant, And so she turned me on. She said, no, do this. And she said, I'm going to give you the name of the person. And it was an organization out of New York, sponsored by the Doris Duke Foundation, that gives grants. It's called Chamber of Music America, CMA. And when I called the lady, she says, Mr. Hernandez, you're exactly the person we're looking for. You've accomplished so much, and you're so, proficient at what you do. And the truth of the matter is, so I said, okay, I went outside the box for me and I applied for the grant. It was painstaking, I got to say.
It's a lot of work. I do grants too, and it's a lot of work.
It was painstaking, and I said, oh man, and I hemmed and hawed and I stomped and I screamed, but I moved it forward, and she helped me. She was so nice. She said, look, you need to put this, do that, make sure you do that, boom, boom. Make a long story short, so I'm in New York. I'm flying to New York, and I had finished this project, my project, with my own money. Because I put my money where my mouth is in terms of my, what I want done. And then I was going to New York to record my new project with Spanish Harlem Orchestra with my own money again. Tough as it was. I mean, I was swallowing hard to say, how am I going to get the money? And I'm landing in New York, and she calls me. She says, congratulations, Mr. Hernandez, you got the grant.
Wow.
I just went.
Congratulations.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went like, thank you. And the truth of the matter is, somebody up there is looking out for me, because it really gave me breathing room to be able to say I can pay everybody well.
Exactly.
I can do exactly what I need to do, and feel good about it. So it's a beautiful thing.
Because staying is in the constraints of what you have. You've got quite a number of people working with you.
Well, I have two bands.
That's
in New York, I have Spanish Harlem Orchestra, which is 13 musicians traveling, and I'm living in L.A., although I'm in New York a lot, but I'm living in L.A., so I have a quintet based here. They're all great musicians. I'm blessed because I'm able to work with great musicians in New York who I know, because I'm from there. And now living out here, I've been out here for 12 years. I know a lot of great musicians here, that I can tap into and say, hey, let's do this, and they know what I'm about, and they're happy to be involved, so it's a great situation, man.
Right, and being able to keep everything centered, because it's hard when you're out there trying to breathe one nostril at a time, and that's what happens when you're coming out of your own pocket. But yet you still need that spirit of excellence when you're doing a project. You need to have it on time. You need to get everything in perspective. I know it must have run you quite crazy. So
what was funny though, because she's telling me, well, you need to do this. This is after the record came out, and I'm going, I felt like saying, "What are you talking about? I did what I have to do. The record is there. Look at it. The cover. Look, go listen to it. You know, what else I got to do?
Yeah, right.
I say, look, it's all done.
Right.
I found it funny, and I have a friend of mine who helped me in New York. She said, "Oh, Oscar, stop complaining. Just do it."
Right. Yeah,
right.
Because grants want you to have these performance measures and evaluation. They want to know that their money was spent a certain way and that it meant, and so they have these measures. Yeah, I know. Exactly. I do grants.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the evaluation, because they won't give you another one if you don't. Like, you can get another grant, but if you don't keep up with whatever those requirements are, then they kind of table you for the next grant. I mean, because they know you're not going to give them that other follow-up that they want.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I get that, and I understand that now, but for me, I was looking at, what are you talking about?
Right.
I did the record. Go home and listen to it. Look at the cover. Touch it.
Yeah. Get the shackles off your feet.
They want to keep track of certain things.
Yeah.
But also, have you ever been to Medem?
I've been to Medem's in Europe, isn't it?
Cannes, yes.
Yeah. No, wait a minute. Did we weren't? I think we were in Medem.
Yeah, they have several festivals in Medem and Cannes, in the Palais du Festival.
Yeah,
and some of them have to do with music, television, film. The big one for music and publishing is Medem. And what I do a lot of times with my clients is we go to Medem and we do territorial deals. So what I've been seeing people do nowadays is they have these deals through like Sony or different companies, and they're somehow distributing through them, but they keep asking people to pay them money to do the promotion for the distribution, and that's kind of a little bit backwards, You're supposed to get the money. You're supposed to get an advance against the anticipated royalties, and how did it get twisted up like that? I mean, if you shouldn't be paying a company to do that. If you're doing the distribution yourself, you can use that $10,000 to promote, which will actually go a really long way digitally, because if you put banner ads and stuff, $10,000 will go a long way. But if you are paying somebody to do that, that's usually not going to be a good deal.
I'm always looking for help, for me, because, the music is what I do. It's what I know how to do with my eyes closed. I know how to put it together. I know how to put groups of people together. I'm really clear on getting people together to achieve a common goal in terms of what we're going to accomplish musically. But the business part of it is like, now I got to promote myself. I got to go to social media. I got to do Facebook. I got to do. It's almost not fair. It's like they're making you jump through now 18 hoops to accomplish what they should be doing. Somewhat. It's not fair.
But you've done the work. You've done it. Like, look,
I'm okay, but I still need help.
Yeah.
I still could use help with somebody. I feel so passionate and strong about the quality of music that I'm putting forth that I feel that everybody should know it. And the truth of the matter is that commercial radio is failing the public in general.
It is.
Commercial radio is garbage in general. And so I can't get anything out of commercial radio. And for me, I think part of their responsibility in this everything... We're talking about this country where everything comes down to money. Unfortunately, that's what compromises the integrity of everything across the board. And it's a shame because it shouldn't be that way. So, commercial radio does nothing towards educating the public to good music at all. No, it's just what's commercial.
We don't even a lot of the kids go through digital. They know how to search things out, and they're listening to, like years ago, I'm an entertainment lawyer, and I remember one time I was on a airplane and the kid was next to me listening to, and I said, "What are you listening to?" And they started educating me about this whole genre of music I didn't know a thing about, and it was all underground music. And they were telling me about the groups and stuff, and then I started looking them up, and I was like, oh, and I'm listening to, hey, I like that. So they weren't even listening to radio, and that they tuned out like 20 years ago. They were on another planet, another.
That's a good thing. I always say, I wrote on my last record that won the Grammy with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, thank God for the intelligent, discerning audience that goes beyond the commercial, music that they're being fed to seek, good music. Because that's what you have to do. If you want good food, it's not all around you. You have to go seek it out. Where can I get the food that I need to nourish me? Right. Where can I get the products that I need to that work for me? That that's not somebody getting rich of putting their hands in your pocket constantly. That's the thing that bothers me about this country we live in, as great as it is, you know. That's just part of the way it is.
That's life.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you went ahead and just hustled like you needed to hustle, because you got a good project, and everybody knows where they were when they had that first Grammy hit, when they get that call for that first Grammy nomination. I know you remember that day.
Oh man, I certainly do, and it was like just a feeling of pride, and actually when we won the first Grammy, it was like I had tears in my eyes. I remember, going towards the, you have to do this whole press thing, and just calling the people, my bandmates, say, hey man, we won, and it was very heartfelt. And I still am very emotional about it. Even now that we just won the Grammy in February for the new record, the anniversary, and you can YouTube it, so you can see me walking up to say what I said, and it's just an awesome experience, that you don't get money from it, but the truth of the matter is, it's the recognition of your peers, saying, hey, you're pretty good at what you do, and that's. It's not about the money. I tell people, we make the money and I spend it. It's not about the money. It's the experiences that we gain. And for me, more than anything, is seeing the impact of the music on the audiences. Right. Because I've been in audiences. I'll give you an example. Last year we were playing Blues Alley in Seattle, 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, and I'm sitting there at the end of the show signing CDs, and I see this lady walking up to me going like, and this is typical reaction. She goes like, I want you to know this is the most amazing music I've ever heard. So when somebody tells you that, and the manager was there, I said, Bernie, did you hear that? He went like, yep, I heard it. I said, okay, I just want to make sure. So that's such a cool thing,
Yeah, I know, but we need some more support, because we do have Jose Russo with Jasmine Latenside. And that seems to be, that's what it is. And so we need to expand those boundaries. Because like I said, 4 Grammys later, you made it, but we like to have more exposure out on this coast, man. Because like I said, when you're here, we like to be able to enjoy your successes, hear the different influences. You know what I'm saying?
Well, for me, sharing that success is awesome. I mean, the fact that I get to share it with friends, with family, with fans, that's what makes it all worthwhile. It's not I go home by myself and look at the 4 walls or whatever and just it's sharing the camaraderie that you share with people. You know, the fact that we're here, sharing this experience is it's awesome for me, man. Thank you.
And we're going to share some more, because we're going to go and see another video. This video here, man, is going to make you jump on your feet.
Okay,
I saw this one here. Yeah, man.
The one you showed, I hadn't seen before, but it was pretty cool.
Okay.
So let's do it.
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Well, welcome back to the culture of music and film. I'm D Nice, and I've had a great time here with my hostess, with the hostess over here, Ms. Von True, and these two New Yorkers here. So it brings in 3 East Coast cats to the verb. So we're going to flip it over to them and let them talk about it. Dr. Kelberman, like I said, thanks for being here and showing up. And thank you very much, Oscar, for doing the music like you do it, man. 4 Grammys later, man, we're still appreciating you. We're going to keep on pushing you, man. Appreciate you. So you guys go ahead and just do the New York thing. All right?
Got it.
So, as you are an amazing legend, thank you for briefing your story in on us. You two could give us a lovely background in the West Coast from what it is on the East Coast. So, you do music as well, Doctor, yes?
Previous life.
Previous life.
The doctor is actually, Daryl was asking me, in terms of me, how do I stay in shape with all the traveling and things that I need to do. And we both have the advantage and the privilege to have visited Dr. Kelberman, who's one of the foremost practitioners of chiropractic medicine. I'll let him explain what he does, but he's been extremely helpful to me to put my health on point. And because, we need people. In this life, we need people to help us along, to be able to keep us at an optimum level in terms of being able to do what we need to do. And we were both privileged, Daryl and I, to visit Dr. Kelberman independently without knowing, and that's how we met. And I'll let him explain what he does, because he's pretty awesome.
I get that asked a lot, and it's hard to describe, so I'll just throw some info out. I'm a hybrid. I'm a cross between a chiropractor, a physical therapist, an acupuncturist, and a metabolic nutritionist. So I've been practicing 35 years. Grew up in the Bronx. Graduated City College of New York, Amsterdam Avenue.
Like me.
Right? First love was music, but that wasn't going to get me where I needed to be. So my calling came a little bit later in life than some. I was actually on a honeymoon in the Virgin Islands with a hurricane and met a chiropractor from Glendale.
Oh, okay.
On his honeymoon, and that kind of set it off. And it all started when I was 12 years old and got hit by a bike. Excuse me. I was on my bike, got hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
And it was a bad one, and they just kind of left me that way for years. And the chiropractor was the first person that helped me. So I imbibed that. I knew how great it was, and I spent the last 35 years learning as much as I could in as many different ways as I could, because I was taking care of people who would come in from the road. All right, I took care of a lot of VIPs, and I got known for putting people back together again. Okay, in a comprehensive way, so they could function again and go out there and do their thing.
And the truth is, just from my experience with the doctor, he's, what I really feel is that you can feel the personal interest, and you can feel that he's totally hands-on with how he treats his patients, and that's that speaks volumes to me. Yes. Whereas you go to see a doctor these days, and it's so impersonal, and they want you're there 15 minutes, and they can't wait to get rid of you. It's not that way with Dr. Kelberman, so it's pretty cool.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, it's very key when they do literally hands-on, because they literally just evaluate you when you go in. You can tell them whatever. They're like, oh, just try to medicate you and get you, like you said, get you out the door.
Exactly. And that's not the case. It's not about medication. It's about, holistically what's going to get you to what you need to get to have optimum health. So
it's what's missing in America right now.
Absolutely.
Our medical system is a disease-based system. Yes. They wait till you get sick. Here, now take this or have that surgery or whatever. And we're great at that. Our ERs are, we are fantastic at emergency medicine in this country, but we're really bad at basic health concerns.
Yeah,
okay?
Well, it's even worse than that. I mean, they literally make you sick.
Absolutely.
A lot of the prescriptions they make for you actually make you sick.
That's true.
A lot of pharmaceuticals. I mean, if you listen to the long list of the litany of things that could go wrong, maybe I just want to have heartburn, I mean, I'm not at risk of death or kidney failure or liver failure until I take that medicine, right? So maybe I want to be a little uncomfortable or just change my diet. I mean, as you know, nutrition, is a lot of the story. I
It's
mean,
what you do
food's your
every day.
medicine, and medicine your food, and then your habits. Sitting is the new smoking, they say. I'm a lawyer, and I recently had to get a cataract surgery.
Been there.
And they were telling me, I said, well, why do I have to get this surgery now? Oh, you're old. I said, no, I don't. I'm like the youngest person in here. I'm trying to figure out why did this eye and not this eye? What was it?
That's a hard one.
Why did the eye just deteriorate like that? And I still have 20/20 now. So once they fix that, it's 20/20. But there had to be something, and I started looking into blue light and things like that. And there are certain countries where they actually don't use those halogen lights, and it's at nighttime. The night lights have blue light, and they're actually deteriorating. They said women are more likely to get it, and a lot of people are getting problems with their eyesight.
Well, I'm going to go one step farther for women. Mm-hmm. Women have the highest incidence of autoimmune disease.
That I noticed too. And what is that?
Well, that means that there are triggers in our world that activate it, where your body is attacking itself.
Pollutants and irritants and
one of the
allergens.
things that we've come across of the last couple of years is that you're also the gender that puts toxic things on your body.
Oh, yes.
Which
like
goes in
deodorant.
your body. Not just
And
deodorant.
makeup.
Your makeup, your creams, all this stuff. So, they talk about even sunscreen. They say, oh, everybody's got to have sunscreen.
No.
Well, you know what? A lot of those sunscreens have carcinogenic materials.
Yes.
So let's put some carcinogenics on you in order to keep you from having cancer. That doesn't make any sense
and your
at all.
skin is absorbs it directly into your bloodstream.
And as you know, Europe's completely different. They are way ahead of us.
Yeah, they are.
In that whole avenue.
Well, we get hijacked. I mean, it's propaganda for us. I think the TV is even a disease creator because it's just too much. I mean, I used to have a substance abuse clinic. And,
Wow.
they changed the definition of addiction to any habit that is so obsessive that it interferes with your life. So it encompasses texting, sexting,
Sugar.
Email, sugar. I mean, alcohol is nothing but the purest form of sugar. And so, what I found at first when I had the clinic was we started giving them coffee and donuts. And I realized, that's another addiction.
That's the
It's
AA
just
format.
feeding into.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that because I'm a Buddhist, so I didn't like that format. So I was like, let's try to change it. Let's get into nutrition more, and maybe if we eat better, we'll feel better. And then you find out, that there was a lot to that. I mean, there's supplements. Instead of taking antidepressants, you can actually take supplements. You can exercise. You can change your habits. Right?
Absolutely.
So you know that, but most of what we need to do has to do with that, is changing habits.
Yeah.
Part of it's just education. I find a lot of people just have no idea what's going on in our world.
Yeah.
And that's just nutrition. That's not even talking about what's coming in the air.
Yes.
What we're being exposed to and what we're not being told we're being exposed to, and that goes on and on and on.
Well, technically, we need to be wearing masks in LA, right? We shouldn't be breathing what we're breathing.
Yeah.
It's really bad. I mean, just from the car
A lot of
particulates
particulates.
alone.
Better
But
than
the
it was, though.
construction, the construction particulates, though, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Doctor,
Yeah.
I would love to know for those people who are consistently on a go, like a traveling musician or whomever else with that type of lifestyle, what would you say are basic things that they need to implement in their day-to-day basis that will help them before they need to come to you for services?
Sure. Regular feeding habits is a good place to start. A lot of people just end up waiting until they get someplace to then eat. Having packages of wholesome snacks that they can take with them, whether it's nuts or other things that are more suited to them, so that they can feed themselves on a regular basis, because a lot of people just starve themselves for hours at a time. And then they're already crashed. And now they're going to grab any food that is readily available at that moment, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Good, bad, doesn't matter. They're just going to eat it.
I
think
find
being
that.
conscious of being conscious of that in and of itself is important, because we're not always thinking about what do I need to do for my health in terms of eating, and that's I think what he's talking about.
Yeah,
It's huge.
If they travel a lot, the time zones wreak havoc on their sleep cycles, and not having coffee before you want to go to sleep is a good one.
Definitely
Even though we like that cappuccino after dinner, and it's a good finish for the dessert and all, but. Yeah, not a good idea if you have to get to sleep and perform the next day.
In terms of strain on bones and structure that matter, what would you say are good practices as well?
Have roadies.
That's a good one. I can vouch for that one.
But what about dancing? I mean, look at what happened to Prince. I mean, he was such a consummate performer and a perfectionist in his later years, just like any athlete. I mean, he probably worked out as much, if not as more than a professional athlete would, right? And then he had to have 2 hip replacements, and then, we know what happened there.
Is that what you were going for, joint and bone?
I was going towards, there, as well as our lovely legendary pianist here who is consistently doing like this. Right. And some probably hunch over when they do it,
repetitive.
Well, there's 2 aspects to that. Repetitive is one, joints are another. Collagen is a big thing for joints. Collagen can be eaten in a variety of different ways. I know when I was into football, we were taught to eat bones, so we were getting marrow and really strong nutrient that way, and that works. Today we have beef bone broth in every freezer and every store. At least we do in LA. Right outside. I'm kind of a protein a proponent. I think that it's still a great source of things that are going to keep your muscles alive and well, and muscles move bones. So my specialty is called applied kinesiology, and kinesiology means the study of the movement of your muscles, and muscles move joints. So if you can keep your muscles fed properly, you can keep your joints better, oiled and lubricated, if you will. Okay. And so that's been my love for all these years, is to try to work all of that together. And the system works because we're a combination of physical, chemical, and, if you want, emotional, spiritual. All those things. That's why we are who we are. We have all those things at the same time. It's also what makes it a little complicated sometimes.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I have a question.
Right.
You said you do metabolic.
Nutrition.
Metabolic nutrition. Yeah.
So the way that I do that, there's a lot of new lab tests that are happening right now, but the kinesiology helps me greatly with that, because for every acupuncture meridian and every organ that you have, there are muscles that are relating to that neurologically, and if you study enough, you will learn how those patterns reveal themselves. And you'll know what nutrition goes along with those patterns.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for your plethora. Yes, for your plethora of knowledge. For those of us who need to come see you, please tell us how we can get in contact with you.
The office number is 310-268-8008. And for those who love to look at websites, there's 2. One is my specialty of nerve damage, which is called LosAngelesNeuropathyCenter.com, and the other is my other practice, which is Dr. Kelberman, DrKelberman.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Sir Oscar Hernandez, please tell us where we can find Love the Moment.
Well, Love the Moment is on all the social sites, obviously iTunes, Amazon, CD Baby, you can find it. It's getting great reviews. It just got 4 stars for Downbeat Magazine, which is amazing.
Beautiful.
I'm doing my CD release party in a week and a half in New York City at Dizzy's at Lincoln Center. So I'm really proud. But you can go to OscarHernandezMusic.com, and you can also find me at SpanishHarlemOrchestra.com. Those are my 2 main dear projects that I'm proud to be responsible for. And
do you have any upcoming shows?
Actually, my upcoming show is at Dizzy's now coming up in about a week and a half. And then from there, we're going to be, I'd say you can go to the website. Our tour schedule is there with Spanish Harlem Orchestra. And we have some really interesting things that we're going to be doing, including going to Europe in May and doing a tour. We're working on dates as we speak. Playing all the major jazz festivals. We just finished playing the Newport Jazz Festival in Newport, Rhode Island. I played the John Coltrane Jazz Festival about a week and a half ago in North Carolina.
Nice.
That was awesome. So we get to do some beautiful things like that, playing with some amazing artists, sharing the stage with some amazing artists. But just like in anything else, that, in terms of seeking out good stuff, you have to make sure that you go out there and look for, quality stuff. And hopefully when you do, you'll find us.
Yes,
Great.
keep
Thank
that
you.
message. Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, both,
Thank
for
you.
joining us
Thank you.
today.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ms. Rhonda Dixon, for being here with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you, Dee Nice, for hosting as well. This has been The Culture of Music and Film. Thank you, Women of Prominence and Forefront Media, and we welcome you back next week. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Heaven must have known that this day would surely